Hi, friends. It is I, host Eric, host of Talking Famous People. What do you do when reasoning fails? Well, I don't know. Just continue on as normal. When does reasoning fail? Well, it fails with anybody who's obsessed with victory at the expense of correctness. And I've certainly been one who's guilty of that myself sometimes, but much less so or less frequently than most people. Just to sort of assess it honestly. But, failed reasoning comes out in a lot of different ways. It comes out in mostly like right now, you see it in that people don't have the frame equipped within them to understand how to critique what's going on right now. It's like the problem is this whole thing was a terrible idea. And so every little sort of cognitive dissonance avoiding nonsense that people say is just to avoid that simple fact. How am I this morning? I'm good. I'm in a happy mood. I'm excited to make a weird purchase today that we're going to make. Rachel and I are going to make. We're going to spend probably about $150 total on a very strange purchase. But we decided to do this. It's something we want to do. We want to do for my birthday yesterday. We didn't get around to it yesterday. We'll do it today. We're going to order perfume for ourselves. I would like for Rachel to wear a perfume called it is impossible right now, Jake. It's impossible because of the way the framing has gone down on this shit. We have to change the frame before we can have a meaningful conversation about it. But anyway, I want to get back to my fun purchase that we're going to make today. Back when I was a teenager, I really liked this perfume that this one girl wore named Layla that I had a big crush on. And so much so that I asked her what it was called. And yeah, I am. You're right. Anyway, so when I was a teenager, I had a big crush on this girl named Layla. In fact, we went on a date one time, and I held her hand, and it was a big triumphant moment for me. Anyway, she wore this perfume called Chloe, and so I want to smell it again. This is like an SI treat for me. This is going to be. You just end up biking instead of checks, so we need to take a chill pill. Rachel got her check yesterday. I'm going to try to get mine to check now. I'm going to go on the IRS.gov and enter my shit and see if I can get a check too. That's the day's first bong rip. Always a longer, Your first bong rip of the day is a longer, necessarily. I bet that was very exciting at the time, Liz's mom. I was in high school for the story I had told. But we're gonna order it online right now because we can't go anyplace. I will say this: the local CVS has a locked perfume case with fancy perfumes in there, but they don't have Chloe. They've got all kinds of other things, but they don't have Chloe. They do have there the one that I want to get. Because this is the interesting part of this is not just that we're going to get Chloe, but there's another perfume that I want to get for myself that I used to wear when I was in high school as well, occasionally. called Drakkar Noir. Now, what's interesting is I remember, like, I stopped wearing it one time in high school. I wore it for a little while. Like, I'd periodically put that smell on me, And I remember somebody in high school. The reason I stopped doing that was somebody told me, like, "Oh, everybody has that smell," and so they're like, "I don't want to smell like that." Then when I mentioned Drakkar Noir to Rachel yesterday, she didn't know what I was talking about. She'd never heard of it before. Winston's mom knows what I'm talking about. So I no longer have to worry that everybody wears that smell. It's just been during like a brief time in the 80s when I wanted wearing it when it was popular or something. I need a new bowl for it. I broke the bowl and the head shops are closed. So, as far as I know, as far as I can think, I haven't smelled either of those smells since high school. So, I'm really looking forward to smelling them again. I think it's going to be a great SI like payoff to that. The other perfume that I have a very strong SI link with is a perfume called Shalimar, which is the perfume my grandma used to wear. I looked it up actually just to see what it was all about. It still exists, and it's super expensive. It's like more expensive than Chloe, and Chloe is super expensive. It's like $100 for a little jug of it. But I will say that it's a fun birthday thing that we're doing here, getting perfumes. It's like this is the adult equivalent of my Easy Bake Oven when I was a kid, and I wanted to get an Easy Bake Oven because it looked so cool. But then I never got to play with it because I had them return it because of the social consequences of having an Easy Bake Oven. It's not acceptable for a boy to have an Easy Bake Oven, so I was just like, okay, fuck this. I don't want this. There's too much FE consequences. Shalimar was very big back in the day. My grandmother, my mother both had a bottle on their dressing tables. My grandmother wore it, and I know that if I were to smell it again, it would smell just like grandma. But I wouldn't want my significant other to be wearing Shalimar. That would be weird. It'd be like having sex with your grandma. You don't want to do that. And I like the fact that Rachel never even heard of Drakkar Noir. So it's not like I'm going to smell like a bunch of people she's smelled before, It's true that she's going to smell like a girl that I had a crush on in high school. That's true. But, my take on that is there's a 30-year statute of limitations on SI associations with perfume. As long as it's not related to grandma. That grandma associations last forever. What does Cholo smell like? Oh, they had an easy bake oven for boys, but you made worms and bug gummies. She's never smelled it, or at least she doesn't. She didn't recognize. Never heard the name before even. So I'm assuming she'd never smelled it. She might have smelled it, but not known what it was. But she was unfamiliar with the name of that perfume, Drakkar Noir. There's two K's in it, by the way. You're misspelling it. It's Drakkar. Okay. Duh. Come on. Come on, Lantern Ask. Don't you know how to spell Drakkar Noir? It's interesting that it was made in 1982, Winston's mom. Because, of course, I was in high school 86 through 89. So, it was fairly new when I started wearing it, I guess. You know, it's like I went through a little period in high school where I tried to be like more conforming with the social norms. And I tried to buy clothes that were cool according to people my own age or whatever. It didn't really work. It didn't last long. Unsurprisingly. Well, I enjoy this cup of cold McDonald's coffee that I'm drinking. Because McDonald's does have great coffee. But I'm going to have a proper cup of Eric Creamer coffee right now. You wore a perfume called Royal Secret by Germaine Montiel. $1935. That's when they invented that one. All right, fine, Lantern Ass. You get a pass this time. This time you get a pass. This time. So anyway, you know, life's really kind of just moving along. I need to go get my lab work done. Which is to say, I guess give blood and urine probably to the medical lab place because the doctor wants new lab work done on me before he's basically, what my doctor does is he uses my Adderall prescription to force me to do other medical stuff, which is fine. You know, it's like, okay, I appreciate you. You know, it's like he's my doctor. He cares about whether I'm healthy. So fine. Okay, fine. I don't mind that. But I have to have a checkup occasionally. Whatever. Anyway, so I can't get my Adderall again until I get my lab work done. So, I mean, otherwise I'd have my new prescription by now, probably. It's not gonna be. I'm not gonna get it for like a week at least because I gotta go get my lab work done still. The weird thing is, I don't care. I'm not in any hurry to get speed. It's weird. It has to do with Rachel. It's like Sounds like drug extortion. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get you, Waldo. Um, do I want to go get my labs done? No, but I understand that in the current system, you've got these doctors who are prescribing these drugs. They want to make sure that you're, like, for example, it's similar to what Rachel has to do. We need to go get Rachel. I don't need Klonopin. I don't need Klonopin. I don't want Klonopin. I will take a half. I've already told Rachel, asked Rachel if I could, and she said sure. And that I'd like to take a half of one of her Klonopin at some point. Who knows when I'm going to get around to it, because I have a feeling it's going to knock me the fuck out. And like, I have to get up every couple hours to pee, right? I'm a little concerned about getting too knocked out. So I'm a little wary of trying it, but I am going to try just to see, because I want to see for myself what it's like since she's taking it, you know. I took part of one of her Trazodones one time to see how much that knocked me out, and I think I took a quarter of her Trazodone. I didn't even take a half of it, and it was like super Benadryl. It knocked me out pretty good. She was taking like 2 or 3 of those things. I was taking like a quarter of one, you know. It's not clozapine, it's Klonopin. Or is that the same drug? I forget. Okay, regardless, let's say it's the same thing. Snort it, huh? I don't plan on doing that, but not that I did wet the bed when I was very little, I guess. I wasn't a bedwetter, but I guess I remember it happening a couple of times when I was little. Okay. Where is the cream? Da-da-da-da. Where is the cream? And I say, it's all right. Yeah, now we're cooking with gas. Now we got a real cup of coffee up in the mix. It's the kind of coffee I like to drink. It means, in my opinion, that you have poor SI. Probably 4th slot or 7th slot, maybe 8th slot. It's like, I remember kind of when that happened to me when I was a kid. And it was always the same thing. I'd be so deep asleep, I'd be dreaming. I had to pee real bad, and I'd dream I got up to go pee, and then I actually just pee. I think it's just because I didn't want to wake up, you know. I was enjoying being asleep. I didn't like the fact that I had to get up to pee. I still am that way. I don't like the fact that I have to get up to pee. How did that happen? That sounds like what I experience. I sleep deeply, and it's like at a certain point when you're a little kid, you realize, fuck, I'm gonna have to get up. I cannot. There's no other way around this. There's no way around it. I've often thought about somehow attaching a tube or something to my penis so that when I go have to pee in the middle of the night, I just stay in bed and just pee and it just goes off of the tube into a bucket or something. That would be so convenient. Hey, 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 John Henry. Hey, hey, hey to yourself. Good morning. Nice to see you. Oh, cool. I enjoyed that typing a lot. That was a lot of fun. When I don't do them all that often, and it's 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 somebody who's fun like that guy was. It's fun, you know. They have condom catheters. I don't want a catheter. I just want a well fit. Thanks, Jake Forrest. I just want a well fit tube that fits right onto my penis so that when I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't have to get out of bed and I just let it go and it just pees into the tube. Eventually, I could probably train myself to not even wake up. I just start wetting the bed again, except instead of wetting the bed, it would go into a bucket. I'm doing well, thank you, John Henry. Rachel's still asleep. What's interesting, it shows you how psychological this whole sleep thing is. Last night, I suggested to Rachel that instead of going to bed last night when we went to bed, we would just go take a nap. And then we'd plan to get up around midnight. And, oh, that is a condom catheter, Eric? Oh, I thought a catheter meant you had to have a tube inserted into your penis. I wouldn't want that. So, it was a fun session. I enjoyed talking to that guy. He was cool. Anyway, that's a good idea, Waldo Ludaski. I didn't know they had a name for a condom catheter. I call it P-tube. Sleepy time P-tube. That's what I call it. The other thing I want to make my sleepy times better is the sip and sleep, which is an invention I came up with, or I guess technically Kimberly and I came up with when I was at Kimberly's house. It's basically a Keurig machine that lowers from the ceiling and gets you coffee while you're still in bed. Now, you have to conjoin this with the P tube, and then you can really enjoy your sleep, having cups of coffee while you're sleeping and peeing without getting out of bed. That would be the ideal. The ideal setup. The Keurig sip and sleep, lowering from the ceiling, and make me cups of coffee with lots of non-dairy creamer in them. And a pee tube going to my remote pee bucket. Really? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Is that the proper response to that? I'm not sure. I have my own pee bucket right here so that I don't have to leave the room to pee at night. I just have to stand up and pee in the bucket. It's a great pot to piss in right here. This is it's made to be a piss pot. It's nice and deep so that it doesn't splatter. It's got two handles right here. It's perfect for just holding right there. And it's heavy. It doesn't tip over. It's a good piss pot. A long time ago, when I was a methamphetamine addict in the early 2000s, I would have all these containers of pee around my workspace because I could never get up to go to the bathroom. So, and then eventually I go, okay, I've got to empty all these containers of pee now. This is really starting to accumulate around here. That's rough, Waldo. Yeah, I don't. That's a tough one to respond to, FE wise. You know. It's crazy the things you find out about people that you'd never have ever guessed, right? Yeah, it's a conversation stopper / starter. Yeah, I'm with Winston's mom too. I have no idea how to proceed either with that conversation. The good news, Waldo, is you are now qualified to compete in the Paralympics. So there is a silver lining. You can play wheelchair basketball now, and you probably weren't allowed to before. I'm not familiar with murder ball. It sounds like a little high stakes for a game for me. Murder ball. But speaking of sports, thank you, John Henry, for demonstrating how to deal with that stuff. Good job. I miss sports, man. I really miss sports. And the weird thing is, I don't watch a lot of sports because I'm busy, not because I don't like them, just because there's other things that I like a little bit more. You know, I rarely seem to have time to watch a lot of sports on TV, but I miss having sports on TV. It's like it's not something I do a lot of, but it's something that a little bit is important to me. I've been watching old sports highlights on YouTube because I guess I just have this hunger for sports, you know? The news is making you doubt everything in life. I mean, I'm not reading the news right now, really. I mean, I check Google News occasionally still but I tend to read science stories. You know, Google News has learns what you like to read and starts giving you more of that. I get a lot of stories about like mathematicians solving math proofs that had been unsolved for a while. I guess they decided I like those kind of stories. I do like those stories. You know, it's like, hey, people are still solving shit. Good. I also get a lot of poker news. Google News decided I like poker news. Oh, cool. No, I don't watch child prodigy documentaries. I will watch some nature documentaries. The other day, Rachel and Cameron and I were watching. Oh, you can still see me in the mirror. I'm gonna turn my pants around because they're backwards. um, we were watching some, Planet Earth kind of Discovery Channel shit or whatever. And we watched this great one about this hedgehog. And it's like we were all fooled by this thing. Okay, so the hedgehog is like a little furry guy, right? And so he was going after this poisonous snake. And like me and Rachel and Cameron were all like, "No, don't go to the poisonous snake. What are you doing? You're gonna die." And it was like going sniffing it, and the snake was going backwards like this. We're like, "No, hedgehog! Fuck! What are you doing? That's crazy!" And then the snake made a move, and the hedgehog was so fast you couldn't even see what happened, and it chopped the head of the snake off. And we're like, "Oh my god! What? The snake was the prey here?" It was so exciting. That's a badass little furry creature. Let me tell you, that hedgehog. It was so fast you couldn't even see it chop the head off the snake. It was exciting. We also watched that one. You've probably seen it. Like, it's one of the most famous of the Planet Earth things. The one where the iguana's running across the beach and all these snakes are trying to get it. Like, there's an iguana. He's running across the sand, like with his forelegs all like flying out in every direction. And there's like this shit ton of snakes are all like trying to get him. And they get him for a second. They grab him. They start to wrap him up, but he fucking struggles free and runs off. And the snakes are chasing after him. He finally gets to these rocks and gets up high and gets away. It's an amazing piece of video. Yeah, I could watch a lot of those. I could watch nature documentaries like that for a while. Rachel and I have a plan to go see a hockey game at some point. Lantern asked since you mentioned it. And the reason is because Rachel informs me that of all the sports, hockey is one that's best to be seen in person. I've never seen a hockey game in person. So I would like to go see one. I've heard this from a couple of different people. You're probably hearing the peacocks. Question mark. My dad was watching a Prodigy video of a little Chinese girl playing piano the other day that he and his friends had shared amongst each other. And my dad was doing basically detective work on it, trying to see if it was fake at all, because the little girl was so good, and whether it was a small size piano or something. And he determined that it was a regular size piano. Well, he is interested in what gets shared amongst he and his old friends via email. So it's like he's got old friends around the country, people who were in the army band with him a long time ago. Ed Shanahy is one of his friends. He's this guy who I think he lives in Florida. He plays piano, and some other of his friends, and they have like an email group or whatever. And they share things like that. Although he could have gotten it by, he probably got it by email. It's an interesting thing. It's like the policing of language is somewhat understandable, kind of implicitly, because it's true that in-group, out-group stuff creates dismissive language that comprises ontological violence of some sort. But what they don't seem to understand is that their manner of addressing that is more violent in every sense, ontologically and otherwise, than the thing they're trying to solve. That's the problem with their whole modality, is that it's TI resistant. It requires them to be tolerant of cognitive dissonance, and that's always a bad thing. Oh. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was obviously not fake to me. There was no doubt whatsoever that it was real. It was just this little Chinese girl who was really good at playing the piano, So in that regard, it's consistent with his functions because it's consistent with Ni-polar. He shouldn't have doubted that it was real, because it was, to me, it was just obviously, you can tell. I can always tell. What's interesting is Rachel can't always tell. She's fairly gullible. Ni-polar means you don't have any sense of questions like that, but more importantly, if there are a few red herring clues that something might be fake, but definitive clues that it's not, then Ni-polar is not going to get that, because that's a matter of what's determinant. And that's Ni. What's determinant? I like to use this example, the piece of broccoli on your face. This is NIFE determinant, right? If an ESTJ or even an ESFJ gives a speech, and they think they do a great job, but they can tell the response to it was weird. People were looking at them weird. And they go home and they realize the whole time they've had a huge piece of broccoli on their face that they didn't notice. Well, and anybody with any NI will go, that was the problem. I don't have to worry about whether I didn't have good timing on the joke or whether I spoke too fast or too slow. Those weren't the problems. The problem was this huge piece of broccoli on my face the whole time. Okay, that's NI. Ni-polar goes, well, maybe the broccoli had something to do with it, but it could also be these other things that that were factors. No, it wasn't those other things. It was the fact you had a huge piece of broccoli on your face. Those other things are ancillary, irrelevant, things. The broccoli thing's too difficult for you to understand? Question mark? Really? Well, so, and when you have too much NI going on, you think everything has a determinate quality like that. Not everything is like that, right? Sometimes the reason your speech didn't go well is because you have a huge piece of broccoli on your face. But other times, it's a combination of different things that made it not go well. Sometimes it's not your fault at all. Maybe there was, a ruckus going on in the room while you were trying to give your speech and it ruined it. Well, like SIFE will blame themselves, the situation, and feel a lot of feelings about that. Like, fuck, I fucked that speech up because it didn't go well. But my experience was it didn't go well. It doesn't matter that it had nothing to do with my fault, right? NIFE will go, well, there was a ruckus. I couldn't have done a good speech. It's not my fault. I'll just let it go. What's the difference between prioritizing your experience or prioritizing the meaning? Yeah, Sky Gear, good question. What does the eighth function do? How is it interpreted? Because you talk a lot about polar, but nobody seems to say much about the last function. That's NI going ape shit right there. It was small. Exactly. My songs don't necessarily mean anything. I discover what they mean after I write them a lot of times. I don't have an intention ahead of time. A lot of the word choices are based on I need words that have the following syllable sound. Ba-da-da. And so then I'll come up with words that make you go ba-da-da. Yes, NI keeps you up when you want sleep. That's true. I believe that entirely. But yeah, a lot of my songs don't necessarily, I'm not trying to convey any particular meaning with them, and they convey meanings that I don't intend a lot of times. There are, and I say they certainly aren't written towards any specific person, with maybe one or two exceptions. Like Dying Day was written to Kimberly, but yeah. How can an overwhelming NI figure out the difference? Well, I mean, one quick and easy answer to that is complimentary person. If you get a complimentary person, they'll help you with the things that you are deficit in without really even trying. So, like, Rachel benefits from my extroverted intuition, which liberates her from her introverted intuition. In other words, when she goes, here's this awful truth I see, I go, well, but there could be this or this or this. And because I'm intuitive, my could be this or this or this are things that are meaningful in a way that impact her NI so that she can understand that the NI is still right in some sense without being constrained. Probably. I mean, the thing is, most of the time, I'm not singing to anybody in particular. I'm just, and sometimes when I am talking about things that are specific to me, I don't even know I am. For example, in the song "What's the Big Problem," the chorus or the bridge goes, "Yeah, you guys both have lots invested. That's not a reason to stick around." I was talking to myself and Kimberly there, but I did not know that at the time. I thought I was writing a song that was intended to be universally resonant with women in particular, and that's all I was doing. I didn't understand that I was writing about my own relationship because I'm FI polar and I'm NI ignoring. So sometimes the obvious truth is something I just ignore. My Share of Shame is another song. I don't know. That's a tough question to answer, John Henry. An interesting one. But another example of this song, this any NI relationship with songwriting, is Share of Shame. If you're an NI Dom. Share of Shame is a song where I'm talking about a fight we had. Driving in the car last night, we had a nasty fight, each insisting we were right, the other one to blame. I took an NI reality, which was that Kimberly and I were having awful fights, in which I was ending the fight screaming things like, as she's walking away from the car after having insisted that I drop her off. I didn't drop her off. She'd walk away from the car, and I screamed after her, "You worthless cunt!" And that's what prompted me to have that song. But what did NE do with it? It took the obvious truth that I wasn't meant to be with this person, and it said, I will rewrite this narrative. So I'll take the facts of the fight, I'll put it in the chorus there, and then I will make the second verse say the following. It goes, it's each of our own failings, not us nailing the other to the wall. We fear so the other sailing off to reset their life and all. But you can trust me and I can trust you. And what's the next word? Though neither trust ourselves much true. The love lays deep between you and me, or lies deep between you and me. At least about that we can both agree. I'm saying in that song to Kimberly, here's the narrative we will adopt going forward to change this reality that's bad. We will adopt the following narrative that, in fact, it's not us who's hurting each other. It's our failings that we need to just address. It's hurting each other. It's not us who want to hurt each other. It's just our fear of the other sailing off to reset their life again and all. That's what's the problem here. And in fact, we can trust each other, even though neither of us trust ourselves. Well, the reality is I trusted myself fine. She didn't trust herself and I didn't trust her because I shouldn't have, because she was awful. But I was saying, here's how we tell the right story now, Kimberly. Now begin telling the right story with me and everything will be fine. Well, the fact is, you can't any away the NI obvious truth sometimes. Yeah, I think that's too much NI. I think that's NI going next. IAG last. It's mistaking the map for the territory in some sort of really dramatic way that is ridiculous. But, I think that because of my cognitive function stack. NI has prediction qualities, yeah. Well, and the reason for this is NI is operating as the knowledge function of turn-based reality, not real-time reality. And turn-based reality is very subject to predictions. You have to understand things as turn-based in order to have an NI understanding of it, because you need to render this dynamic system into static elements, even if the static element is an element of dynamism, but it's got to be rendered into static meaning. So Okay, you should take some metaphysical Metamucil. Yeah, turn-based reality is like the one we're doing right now. Okay, well, look, this is what it's turn-based for. This is why it's turn-based. Because you said turn-based reality, question mark, and then I responded to it. Nothing changes in the past or in the future yet until we address it again. So right now, we're in a state of, you've said, I've lost you. And I said, I don't think I have. I think you understand what I mean. You're just not familiar with these terms. And what I mean is that now, until you respond again, this is where we are and it stays here. Nothing changes. So if you don't respond again, this is the end of that line of reasoning, so to speak. But it's open to be responded to. So you could come back next time and say, I thought more about what we said last time, Eric, about turn-based, and here's my response. Now, that's not the case if we're playing soccer, right? You don't get to see what I do. I kick the ball here. Okay, now I'm going to go away. I'm going to come back next time, and the ball will still be there where I can kick it again. It's not like that in real-time stuff. It is like that in turn-based stuff. So that's a fundamental difference in meaning-based realities versus experience-based realities. No, it is interesting, IAG last. Very interesting. I like to take a short break and go stand outside now for a minute, smoke a cigarette, and gather my thoughts. So if you don't mind, can you please chat briefly amongst yourselves? No stress, Waldo Ludowski. Yeah, exactly what John Henry says. Well, Look, I can divide my own meaning-based and experience realities into simple tasks or things I'm doing. So, like when I'm sleeping, trying to go to sleep, that's an experience-based reality for me. I'm feeling my body, I'm stretching, I'm yawning, um, rolling around, attending to my body and the experience in the moment. If I'm failing to sleep, I'm not doing that. I'm thinking about something in my head that's a bunch of meaning based stuff that's irrelevant to the moment and sleeping in my body and being tired. Right now, I'm doing meaning based stuff. I'm adding to the flow of information that I spew out on a regular basis about random shit. In this instance, in this moment, I'm talking about cognitive functions and more precisely, the human experience. Being human comes in various forms. Some humans are like me and they want to talk all the time about metaphysical ideas. Some humans are like Pierre XO, who's an ESFP and is also an extrovert like me, but is a different kind of extrovert and talks differently about ideas and talks about the human experience differently in predictable ways and consistently across time. So, as a metaphysical type, I like to explain that stuff. I'm very explainy. In fact, one of the things that I learned as a student teacher when I was working under Mr. Samuelson as my mentor teacher, who taught me a great deal and to whom I'm very much indebted. He said, Eric, you've got to stop explaining things so much. Because, of course, when you're trying to teach kids, you can't just explain things. That's not a useful thing to do, really, in general, because there's only sometimes a few kids who learn that way. Like EHPs will be fine with that. But other types, EHPs and IHPs are like, great, you're just explaining things. Fine. Perfect. We're auditory, you're auditory, you talk, we process this language super fast and understand it all in the terms in which you mean it, and that's great. But most kids are not EHPs or IHPs, and so you can't teach that way. And for example, I'm working with an ISTP girl named Chloe. Interesting coincidence there that she's named the same thing as the perfume I want to get for Rachel. But interesting. Thanks for that heads up question mark. It's not this one, right? Hi, Maddie Sanchez. John Henry makes a good point here. Also factor in how much people are mature and broken down and or broken down. Another way of putting that is how much people are a product of evolution or defense. If you feel like life is not enabling and supporting you, and there's perhaps good reason to think that, then you can become damaged in a way that makes them somewhat toxic, but they don't have to be necessarily damaged that way. So Rachel's endured a solid decade of what I would call forced skittishness in an environment where people are trying to fix her all the time and explain to her what's wrong with her and just generally engaging in ontological violence. That has damaged her somewhat, but being an NIDOM has saved her from being as damaged as most people would be. In other words, she never really lost faith in the truth that she saw, and she just sort of lost faith in humanity because nobody else seemed to be able to see it. I'd like to think, and I feel gratified by thinking, that being with me has changed everything for her. Because all of a sudden, she's not just right, but she's winning the arguments. And boy, is that a big difference? When you're right and winning the arguments versus right and losing the arguments? Yeah, it's a big difference. You know, I've always wanted to be with somebody who needed me and my unique skills. And there's never been another human being, I can't even conceive of another human being who more exactly needed me and my unique skills than Rachel, which is great. It makes me very emotional. So, yeah, people do hate things explained to them because it requires them to TI process shit faster than they're capable of doing it, or even more than they're capable of doing it sometimes. You talk to somebody who's 4th slot, 7th slot, TI, then they're going to really hate it. It's like when I went to Arizona to visit Horse Melbourne. On the way out of town, I left real early in the morning. I stopped at the Waffle House, like at 3:30 in the morning or something, to get what's it called? Coffee and a Coke. That's all I got was coffee and a Coke. Okay? And due to this woman being this girl, basically, she's like maybe 20, I don't know. She was new, I guess, to Waffle House. They have a policy that they have a 10% surcharge on takeout orders, which goes as tip to the servers, which is fine. I had no problem with that policy. That's fine. But she couldn't figure out how to add 10% to my bill. So it was like the bill was supposed to be like $6 or something with the 10% added, and she just kept trying to charge me like $11. And the reason was because she kept adding 110% to my bill instead of 10%. I'm whipping my ass. I am. Why wouldn't I say I'm whipping it? I'm clasping my cheek is what I'm doing. It's a cheek clasp. You could call it a cheek grasp. I can see it too. You can see I'm grasping and clasping. Now I'm moving it up and down my left cheek. It's the more sensitive of my cheeks. It requires a little more attention. Okay, so what was I talking about before I got distracted by my butt cheek? These are my butt cheeks. Yeah. These are my butt cheeks. Yeah. Those are my butt cheeks. Yeah, I always got my hand down my pants too. I get here. It's a man thing. That should be an adequate amount of creamer. Waffle House, right. Thanks, Waldo. Appreciate the reminder. Appreciate that. Yeah, so this Waffle House girl, she kept trying to charge me 110% instead of 10% surcharge. And I was trying to explain to her how to do it properly, right? But she was clearly 4th slot TI, which means, see you later, John Henry. Thanks for being here. Which means that that's good. But she had learned this way, and she'd been trained to do it a certain way. And so she kept going back to her 8 slot TE, which is going to serve her dominant FE, and trying to implement the method she'd been taught. And it wasn't working. So I tried to explain to her, but listen to me. Just please listen. Let me explain this to you. She did not want to listen to me at all. Did not want to have anything explained to her, and so she eventually called her. She kept trying to call her supervisor or boss or whatever, and it was like the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m. Eventually, her supervisor answered, and she was told what I'd been telling her the whole time, that the total is like $6.60, and she came to me and she was crying and she's like, "You're right, $6.50. I'm sorry." It's okay. Don't worry about it, lady. Please don't cry. Whatever you do, please. Oh, ouch. I don't mean to, I wasn't even mad or anything the whole time. I was just kind of baffled, like, but if you just listen to me. Can a person inherit or take over an archetype? Talk about backwards thinking. An archetype is something that we use to sort of descriptively delineate between expressions of being. Well, I mean, I just felt I don't want to make anybody cry. I don't want to put anybody in a situation, but of course, it wasn't my fault at all. But I still feel responsible for other people's feelings. Yeah. Girl crying. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. What did I do? Okay, Jesus, I'm in trouble now. Is it possible to put an archetype in somebody's head through religion? I mean, I think what archetypes are is sort of fundamental building blocks of meaning about other people in our lives or ourselves. So, well, it's kind of like, look, archetypes are kind of like the big five. Are people varying degrees of open? Sure. Is openness actually a trait that people have? No. It's a metaphor or a descriptive block that we use to describe a variety of different behaviors and tendencies that together comprise this composite thing that we call openness. Extroversion's a little different than that, but so we'll not address that one. But same thing with neuroticism. Here at dacryphiliac, that's an interesting word. You just gave me a new word. You like girls crying. That's called dacryphiliac, right? Dacrophilia. Dacrophilia refers to sexual pleasure or arousing from seeing tears or hearing the sounds of crying. Huh. People also ask, why do I get wet when I cry? Some girl group does, why do I always get wet after I cry? Not just a little either. I get pretty wet. Oh. I just like the way the question's phrased there. Um, what am I going to do today? What do I have on the agenda for today? What day is it? Well, I have to do work later today, this afternoon. But that's not till later. I need to take a nap here pretty soon. I'm getting reasonably sleepy feeling. I want to go to irs.gov and put in my stuff to see if I get a stimulus check today. Probably want to watch a little Naruto. Yeah, you have a nice day too, question mark. I think that's my key to wrap this one up. We're going to watch the episode of Naruto, then take a nap. Thanks for being here, everybody. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and talk to you later.